how to get suspended in the NBA. And this hasn't been one of the ways that you could get suspended in the NBA. So then punishing him further, it's not as if it was unprovoked, which I agree. Draymond probably could have avoided stepping on him. And he should show some remorse to his teammates for costing them his play in the rest of that game and then the subsequent suspension. However, I do think you have to understand in this context that Draymond got grabbed. It's a spur-of-the-moment type of situation, and having him thrown out of the game was punishment enough. It's not as if he was not punished. And then also, like, if it's about him taunting the crowd or talking trash to the crowd, then say that. But it doesn't seem that they're saying that. They're tying this to the other actions that he's had in the past. And that big final suspension in 2016 was a result of it being upgraded and it being his 15th technical foul that year. And that's why I got suspended, because that's a hard and fast rule. The players just want to know the rules. And if you're just going to change it on something that seems kind of fickle like this, then it feels really uncomfortable and it feels like a slippery slope going forward. At some point, it's going to be a player that we all kind of like and appreciate. And Draymond's polarizing. So I think it feels okay for so many of us to be like, all right, well, make Draymond pay the price.
What do you think here, Alan, as we consider the history that is involved here with him and the history of the league?
Yeah, first of all, the one thing I think is that houndstooth jacket is a bold choice, and I love it. Second thing, though, is that, listen, the criteria of suspension in the NBA when it comes to flagrants is it's 4-point system, right? So a flagrant 2, that's 2 points. So that doesn't lead to the suspension. So now you go aerial view and you go to his entire career, and that's what they decided to do. 11 years of a lot of technicals and a handful of suspensions, and they just felt like this is something that needs to be addressed. And the one way to address it is not to fine him, because it's just money out of his pocket at this point in his career. That's not a big deal. He openly talks about that stuff all the time. How do you impact a player who means so much to his team on an emotional level? You take him away from his team. And in a critical, pivotal Game 3, he is not going to be available for his team. That personally can hurt a player. D-Wood, I know you can relate to this as an athlete, that you are not, and Nick as well. When you are taken away from your team and you're not there to help them now, and you're one of the emotional, you're one of their emotional leaders, and you can't be there in a must-win situation, that's got to hurt you a lot more than any fine can.
You feel like an outsider. And like I equated like you being injured, you can't play. You don't even feel like you're part of the team. And we talked about the stats of when Draymond's out there compared to when he's not. He makes a huge difference. Like he sets their defense. And like I think for me, the thing that I'm like disappointed as far as Draymond's concerned, it's like, bro, you know your history, you know how the league comes at you. Why would you put yourself in a situation where you could possibly get suspended? Like, you know this type of thing can happen. Now you go into Game 3, you're down 0-2, you obviously playing at home, but now your team doesn't have that your defensive prowess to rely on in a critical game for the Warriors.
Monica, let me zero my question in a little better, because I don't think I've done it well. If after this happened, instead of taunting the crowd and getting into all of that and afterwards saying, I didn't have anywhere to land my feet and I'm not that. If afterwards Draymond had just walked off the court somewhat quietly and said, you know what, my emotions got the best of me. He grabbed my leg. I got upset. I shouldn't have done what I did. And, and had taken that tack instead. Do you think that this outcome would have been different?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. And I think if the league is sincere in taking his history into consideration, then if he were to respond that way, I would argue that they would have needed to take his growth in that moment into consideration as well. And so Foxy used the word arbitrary earlier today. I think what we're considering, that does feel a little bit arbitrary in terms of his use. Now, what Draymond has done in the past, yes, that's well documented. And so I think that's a great point, Greeny. I think if he responds differently in the moment, because he was first provoked. He just stepped on Sabonis on the ground. Sabonis grabbed his ankle. Now, if you really want to get savvy and show growth, Draymond falls out when his ankle is grabbed. He's now the one that is at the other end of a player that is supposedly making a dirty play, right? But of course, hindsight is 20/20. But I think yes, if he responds differently to the whole thing, I don't think we're here.
Look, Sabonis got a technical for the play itself, right? He got called for a technical on the play. So the league recognized and acknowledged that he had done something wrong as well. Now, as your mother always said to you, just because he did it doesn't mean that you should. Doesn't make it right. Two wrongs don't make it right. No one is sitting here defending what Draymond Green did. The question is simply, this feels like a very, very significant punishment. He's now missing parts of 2 games. He's missing all of 1 game and the most important part of game 2. And if it winds up costing them the series, then this will wind up having been a very, very significant punishment.
Yeah, and so that's how you hit him, is you hit him that way in a critical game. But I also wonder, is there, and again, I go back to that JoJo English, Derek Harper thing, because that really did change the league. Think about it. David Stern had happened in front of him, and he said, that's it. You step off the bench. You are suspended for a game. It was to send a message because that was going on too much. Is this now maybe a message to the Memphis Grizzlies do a lot of acting up? We saw stuff that happened throughout the league. Is this a message around the league to say zero tolerance with this kind of behavior?
Well,
There's like 5 players that this applies to, in my opinion.
Doesn't matter.
It's smart.
But I hear you.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I'm wondering if that's also a message to the entire league. We'll make an example.
It gets a lot of attention. All right, I have to leave it here for the moment. We'll come back top of the hour. We'll reset. We'll go through all of this, and maybe we'll answer by far the most important question, which is, are the Warriors done?
I'm shaving it all off. Believe that.
It's tough.
None of y'all gonna clown me. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah, and these are the conversations, candidly, I enjoy the most. In the meantime, we welcome you back live to another hour from the Seaport. We're brought to you by Grey Goose. As you can see, we are jam-packed this morning. We had so many things planned, and then 11:30 Eastern time last night happened. And the NBA announced that it was suspending Draymond Green for a game 3 of the series between the Warriors and the Suns, for stepping on the chest of Domantas Sabonis in that Game 2 win over Golden State. And the league, in its statement, announcing that the suspension was based in part on Green's history of unsportsmanlike acts. That is a direct quote. It is one of the biggest decisions the NBA has made in quite some time, considering the impact it has on this series and on this dynasty. Damian Lillard, among many who reacted to it on Twitter last night. You see the palm face emoji, and later saying a suspension is crazy. And so everyone had reactions to this morning, and that's why I wanted to keep everyone in for the discussion, including Damian Woody, who came into our meeting this morning just
like a hurricane.
Like a hurricane.
I came in like a hurricane.
What's your
Greeny.
reaction?
I didn't like it, but I understood. Like, if you Draymond Green, okay, yeah, you stepped on Sabonis' chest and all that. I get all of that. They gave you the tech. But then you want to go out there and act a fool and stuff like that, like doing all this stuff, inciting the crowd and the commissioner sitting right there. And the commissioner sitting like, oh, so you want to act a donkey on national television, acting a fool? Okay, I got something for you. Because all them times that you done cut up before, I'm going to lay it all at your feet right here, and I'm going to give you this 1-game suspension because you've been acting a fool in front of me. That's what it is, man.
See, that is such a fascinating.
And wait a minute, I'm Green. He's too old. He's like Draymond, like, bruh, you 30-some years old acting a fool like that, like in front of the crowd. I can see if you 22, but you 32, 33 years old acting like that. Come on, bro, you got to know better.
That's integral to his personality.
Well, so that brings up this question, Kmart.
Yeah.
Is the suspension solely for the stomp on the chest of
not
Sabonis?
At all.
You think it is for all the other things as well?
It's because it's Draymond, which on one level I understand it's the history of it, but what's hard for me is the fact that it was instigated, so he was just trying to do his little Drew Hill hop off the man's chest.
Drew Hill.
And so, shout out to Jasmine for that joke. But so on one hand, it's like I see the act, but we almost, when you cover football, it's like you guys have to be in the moment. You guys have to have all that adrenaline, all that, like, honestly, rage to play the game. And then we want to be like, no, wait, control it. Stop it. Draymond Green, this is who he is. And now all of a sudden he's being punished for it. I get what Monica was saying. I do get it. But at the same time, what makes him Draymond and what makes him special to this team is literally all of that, the histrionics, all of this. That's like what makes me Kmart. Like, you're going to get all this. And if ESPN said, oh, hold on, stop, sis, that's too much, I'd be like, what are we doing? What are we doing?
Understood. So there's the two different pieces of it. If Draymond Green steps on Sabonis' chest and then runs off the floor without doing anything else, he gets suspended. He just goes running into the locker room and refuses to speak to the media afterwards. So none of the things that he did or said happen afterwards. do we think the outcome is different? That's the question. Do we think all that factored into the decision the NBA made?
I do. And again, I'm just going with the statement that has been put out. If you are going to factor in what you believe or what you have identified as his history, if he were to respond that way, Greeny, then you would need to factor in what would look like his growth in that moment. And so I think the next layer of it all is why we're now at the suspension. I was good with the in-game ejection and the technical to Sabonis. I thought that was a fine place to leave it, especially because if Sabonis never grabs Draymond's ankle, we're not here, right? And two wrongs don't make a right per se. But if we're going to bring in history, then you would have needed to acknowledge potential growth.
Can we talk about the absurdity of the whole scene, though, the whole WWE of it all? If you really watch it from the beginning, if you watch Sabonis, I mean, him acting up, I mean, this is straight out of, right? This is straight out of WWE. Everything, like laying there, I mean, writhing in pain, and somehow got back in the game and played. But then Draymond playing the crowd, all of that, to me, was all part of the show that we have seen many times when it comes to pro wrestling, and it's fun. But the league would have said in the statement that he didn't leave the court in a timely manner or any of that stuff if that was part of the decision. I don't believe it is. I believe it was aerial view of a career of a guy who doesn't seem to care when he is fined or even given flagrant fouls. So how do you hit him? Emotionally. Take him away from his team.
So, Dominique, one of the reasons that people like Adam Silver and Roger Goodell and others who have to make these decisions have a much harder job than I do is it is very easy for me to sit here and give my opinion each individual time something like this happens, and I don't have to use precedent. I don't have to have logical reason. I can just say, to me, the way Draymond handled that situation afterwards was actually entertaining and fun. I understand, however, there is a fine line between that and some of the incidents we've seen in the history of the NBA that involved the fans, that got very ugly, and that went well beyond anything that could be fun, and they have to be very careful to make sure that never happens again. I'm not even talking about the most legendary, famous, and horrible one in the Palace, but there's so many times that you have interaction between the fans and the players, and it goes way beyond the pale, and they have to be very careful not to allow that to happen. That said, there is also something, you call it the WWE, that's been a very successful business for a long time. Because the concept of heroes and villains, and villain being an important piece of that, has been a part of entertainment since the inception of entertainment. So, Dominique, I feel there's a lot at play here, and there's a part of me that when this kind of thing is going on, I kind of like it.
What are you going to do, brother?
What do you think?
Yeah, from my union perspective, you're going to hear me defend the players. But I understand, as far as you're concerned about the entertainment, it's more fun to watch. I loved it all watching it. But I think what the league did, while I think it was the wrong decision, I think it was a strategically smart decision because whether it gets appealed and brought back or not doesn't really matter.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.